What if I told you that every pleasure you chase is actually running away from a part of yourself you're afraid to meet? Right now, as you listen to these words, there's something stirring in your chest, a recognition, perhaps, of how desperately you've been trying to fill a void that can never be filled from the outside. You scroll, you consume, you seek the next high, the next validation, the next escape. But what if pleasure itself has become your prison? If this resonates with you, if you're ready to discover what Carl Jung knew about the hidden psychology of desire, then stay with me. And if you find value in this journey, please like this video and subscribe. It helps more souls find their way to these essential truths. There's a peculiar suffering that marks our time, not the clean pain of loss or grief, but something more insidious. It's the exhaustion that comes from constantly feeding yourself and never feeling full. The restlessness that follows every satisfied craving. The way pleasure has become both your medicine and your poison. You know this feeling. It's the hollowness after binge-watching another series. The emptiness after buying something you thought would change how you feel about yourself. The subtle disappointment that follows even the most intense experiences. Jung called this the collective neurosis of modern life, our desperate flight from our own depths. Man cannot stand a meaningless life, Jung observed. Yet we've built entire economies around meaningless pleasures. Endless distractions that promise everything and deliver nothing lasting. We've become addicted not to substances, but to the very act of avoiding ourselves. Think about your last moment of genuine satisfaction. Not excitement, not stimulation, not the brief rush of dopamine, but true satisfaction. Can you remember it? Or has it been so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to be genuinely at peace with simply being? This is the shadow of our pleasure-seeking culture. We've confused intensity with depth, stimulation with nourishment, consumption with fulfillment. And in this confusion, we've lost touch with something Jung considered essential to psychological health, the ability to be alone with ourselves without immediately reaching for something to fill the space. But here's what Jung understood that we've forgotten. Every compulsive pleasure you seek is actually a distorted expression of a genuine need. Every addiction is a misdirected hunger for something real. The problem isn't pleasure itself. It's that we've been trained to look for it in all the wrong places. The shadow of pleasure is this. What you think you want is rarely what you actually need. What you're running toward is often a disguised form of what you're running from. And the very act of running, this constant motion, this endless seeking has become the real prison. Society has taught you a beautiful lie. That happiness comes from getting what you want. But Jung discovered something far more profound, that most of what we want has been programmed into us by forces we've never consciously examined. Your desires aren't yours. They're the result of 1,000 subtle influences, a complex web of conditioning that begins before you can even speak. The persona, Jung's term for the mask we wear in the world, doesn't just hide who we are from others. It hides who we are from ourselves. And this false self has false desires, false needs, false pleasures. Consider how you learned what to want. Was it from quiet moments of self-reflection, from deep communion with your own nature? Or was it from advertisements, from social media, from the subtle and not so subtle messages about what a successful, attractive, worthy person should crave? Machiavelli understood power, but Jung understood something deeper, how the powerful use our unconscious desires to control us without us ever realizing we're being controlled. Every swipe, every click, every purchase is tracked, analyzed, and fed back to you as a more refined form of temptation. You think you're choosing, but you're being chosen for. This is the great trap of modern pleasure. It's been weaponized against your freedom. The very system that promises to give you what you want is designed to ensure you never truly get it, because a satisfied person is not a profitable person. A person at peace with themselves doesn't need constant stimulation, constant purchasing, constant validation. Jung spoke of the collective unconscious, the shared patterns that influence all human behavior. But there's also a collective conditioning that's far more deliberate. You've been taught to seek pleasure in ways that benefit others, while leaving you spiritually and psychologically impoverished. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves, Jung wrote. What irritates you about modern culture's relationship with pleasure? The mindless consumption? The endless seeking? The way people seem to need constant stimulation to feel alive? That irritation is your psyche trying to tell you something. It's pointing toward what you've lost, what you've given away without realizing it. Your authentic relationship with pleasure has been buried under layers of conditioning, but it's still there. It's still calling to you. The question is, are you ready to stop letting others define what should bring you joy? Here's what they don't want you to know. Your power lies in your ability to say no, not just to obvious addictions or harmful behaviors, but to the entire matrix of artificial desires that keep you spiritually starving while constantly feeding. Jung understood that individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, requires what he called withdrawal of projections. You must stop seeing yourself through others' eyes. Stop wanting what they tell you to want. Stop seeking their approval for your choices. This isn't antisocial. It's profoundly pro-self. There's a reason solitude feels uncomfortable at first. You've been conditioned to fear it, to immediately fill it with noise, with activity, with stimulation. But this discomfort isn't the problem to be solved. It's information to be received. It's your psyche adjusting to the absence of external validation, external distraction, external definition. Nietzsche spoke of the eternal recurrence, the idea that if you had to live your exact life over and over again, infinitely, would you choose it? But before you can answer that question, you need to know, which life are you living? The one that's been scripted for you, or the one emerging from your deepest nature? Conscious unavailability isn't about becoming a hermit. It's about creating sacred space between stimulus and response, between desire and action, between the world's demands and your soul's calling. It's about becoming unavailable to anything that doesn't serve your highest development. This means learning to sit with discomfort without immediately reaching for relief. It means questioning every craving before indulging it. Is this hunger real, or is it habit? Is this desire mine, or is it borrowed? Will satisfying this bring me closer to who I am, or further away? The mystics of every tradition understood this principle. They called it different names: detachment, renunciation, surrender, but they all pointed to the same truth. Freedom comes not from getting what you want, but from examining the one who wants. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, Jung reminds us. But becoming who you truly are requires first understanding who you're not. It requires stripping away the false desires, the borrowed dreams, the second-hand pleasures that have kept you busy but not fulfilled. This is why withdrawal feels like death at first. In a very real sense, something is dying the false self that needed constant stimulation, constant validation, constant proof of its existence. But what's being born in that space is infinitely more valuable: your authentic relationship with your own life force. Now we arrive at the secret Jung spent his lifetime uncovering. The energy you've been scattering in 1,000 directions, seeking pleasure, can be gathered, concentrated, and transformed into something far more powerful: conscious awareness itself. Every time you choose not to indulge a conditioned desire, you're not denying yourself pleasure. You're reclaiming the energy that was bound up in that compulsion. You're taking back the life force that was being drained away by unconscious patterns. This is the real alchemy, turning the lead of compulsion into the gold of conscious choice. Jung called this process holding the tension of the opposites. Instead of immediately resolving the discomfort of wanting something by getting it, you learn to hold the wanting itself. You study it. You feel its texture, its urgency, its promises. And in that holding, something remarkable happens the wanting transforms. What you discover is that beneath every surface desire is a deeper longing. Beneath the craving for food is often hunger for nourishment, not just physical, but emotional, spiritual. Beneath the need for validation is the longing to be truly seen and understood. Beneath the compulsion to achieve is the desire to express your unique gifts in the world. But here's the crucial insight. These deeper longings can only be satisfied from within. No external pleasure, no matter how intense or sophisticated, can give you what you're actually seeking. The validation you crave must first come from your own recognition of your worth. The love you seek must first be cultivated in your relationship with yourself. This is what Machiavelli never understood, what Nietzsche glimpsed but couldn't fully embrace. True power isn't the ability to get what you want. It's the wisdom to want what serves your highest development. It's the strength to say no to lesser pleasures in service of something greater. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. Jung wrote. When you stop looking outside for what can only be found within, when you stop trying to fill internal voids with external substances, something miraculous happens. The energy that was scattered returns to you. The power that was given away comes back home. You begin to discover pleasures that no one can sell you, no one can take away from you, no one can use to control you. The pleasure of your own company, the satisfaction of creating something meaningful, the deep joy of aligning your actions with your values, the profound peace of accepting yourself exactly as you are while still growing into who you're becoming. This is authentic power, not power over others, but power over yourself. Not the ability to control outcomes, but the wisdom to control your responses. Not the capacity to get everything you want, but the freedom to want what actually serves your soul's evolution. And so we come full circle, back to the question that began this journey. What if every pleasure you chase is actually running away from a part of yourself you're afraid to meet? Now you have the answer. The part of yourself you've been running from is the part that knows you don't need to run. It's the part that's already whole, already complete, already worthy of love and belonging. It's the part that can find joy in a sunset, satisfaction in honest work, pleasure in the simple fact of being alive. This isn't about becoming ascetic or denying yourself all earthly pleasures. Jung never advocated for that kind of split between spirit and flesh. This is about developing what he called conscious relationship, the ability to engage with pleasure from a place of choice rather than compulsion, from abundance rather than scarcity, from love rather than fear. When you know who you are, not who you think you should be, not who others expect you to be, but who you actually are, becomes something entirely different. It becomes celebration rather than escape. It becomes enhancement rather than replacement. It becomes a conscious choice rather than an unconscious compulsion. The pleasures that serve your highest development will call to you naturally. They won't need to be sold to you, pushed on you, or addictively consumed. They'll arise from your authentic nature like flowers from well-tended soil. And the pleasures that don't serve you will lose their grip on your imagination, their power over your choices. This is the great paradox Jung understood. Only when you no longer need external validation do you become truly free to receive it. Only when you no longer compulsively seek pleasure do you become available to experience genuine joy. Only when you stop running from yourself do you discover that you are not something to be escaped from, but something to be celebrated. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, Jung observed. But on the other side of that terror is the most extraordinary gift, the ability to be genuinely happy with your own existence, to find pleasure in your own company, to celebrate your own unique way of being in the world. So I leave you with this question, not to answer quickly, but to carry with you like a seed. If you knew that you were already enough, exactly as you are, what would you choose to do with the energy you've been spending trying to prove otherwise? Your relationship with pleasure will never be the same once you realize that the greatest pleasure of all is the pleasure of being authentically, unapologetically, courageously yourself. The journey home to yourself begins with a single step, the willingness to meet your own gaze in the mirror and say, I see you, I accept you, and you are worthy of the very best that life has to offer. Are you ready to take that step? But let me share with you something even deeper, something Jung discovered in his own journey through what he called his confrontation with the unconscious. There's a shadow side to spiritual awakening itself, a way that even the pursuit of consciousness can become another form of escape, another sophisticated pleasure to chase. You see, there's a particular kind of spiritual materialism that can emerge when we begin this work. We can become addicted to insights, to breakthroughs, to the feeling of being awakened while others remain asleep. We can start collecting spiritual experiences like we once collected material possessions, always seeking the next level of consciousness, the next profound realization. Jung experienced this himself during his years of intense inner work. He found himself seduced by the mysteries of the psyche, by the archetypal visions and profound symbols that emerged from his unconscious. But he came to understand that even these extraordinary experiences could become a trap if they pulled him away from the simple, ordinary business of being human. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. He said, not who you think you should become, not some idealized version of enlightenment, but the beautifully flawed, perfectly imperfect human being you actually are. This is perhaps the most subtle trap of all, using spiritual practice to avoid the messy reality of your actual life, using meditation to escape rather than engage, using philosophy to intellectualize rather than feel, using consciousness work to rise above your human needs rather than honoring them with wisdom. The shadow of spiritual pleasure whispers, you're special, you're different, you understand what others don't. But true individuation, Jung realized, brings you not above the human condition, but more deeply into it. It doesn't make you special, it makes you real. So even as you embark on this journey of conscious relationship with pleasure, watch for the ways your ego might try to co-opt this work. Notice if you start feeling superior to those still caught in unconscious consumption. Observe if you begin to judge your past self harshly for the ways you once sought satisfaction. A path of authentic awakening is humble. It doesn't promise to make you better than others. It promises to make you more genuinely yourself. And being genuinely yourself includes accepting the parts of you that are still learning, still growing, still occasionally reaching for comfort in old familiar ways. True spiritual pleasure isn't about transcending your humanity. It's about embracing it so completely that the divine shines through your perfectly human experience. Now we reach the most practical and perhaps most challenging part of this journey. How do you live this understanding in a world that hasn't awakened to these truths? How do you maintain conscious relationship with pleasure while surrounded by unconscious consumption? How do you stay connected to your authentic desires while navigating a culture designed to manufacture false ones? Jung called this living the transcendent function, the ability to hold the tension between opposites without collapsing into either extreme. You don't retreat from the world, but you don't let the world colonize your inner landscape either. You participate without being possessed. You engage without being enslaved. This requires what Nietzsche called amor fati, love of fate. Not passive acceptance, but active embrace of your life exactly as it is, including the challenges of being a conscious being in an often unconscious world. You learn to find joy not in spite of the difficulties, but through them. Practically, this means developing what I call conscious discernment. Before any purchase, any entertainment choice, any social media scroll, you pause and ask, am I choosing this, or is this choosing me? Am I engaging from fullness or from emptiness? Will this bring me closer to my authentic self or pull me further away? It means learning to enjoy simple pleasures without guilt and to abstain from complex temptations without pride. It means being able to go to a party and genuinely enjoy the connection while also being comfortable leaving early when you've had enough. It means being able to appreciate beauty in art, in nature, in human relationship, without needing to possess it or make it permanent. Most importantly, it means becoming a source of authentic pleasure for others, not through entertainment or stimulation, but through your simple presence. When you're genuinely at peace with yourself, others feel it. Your contentment becomes contagious. Your freedom becomes an invitation. Jung understood that the ultimate goal of individuation isn't personal happiness. It's service to something larger than yourself. When you're no longer compulsively seeking, you become available to give. When you're no longer running from your shadow, you can help others face theirs. When you've found genuine pleasure in your own existence, you naturally want to help others discover the same gift. This is the final paradox. The journey that began with turning inward ultimately turns you back toward the world, but now as a source rather than a drain, as a giver rather than a taker, as someone who has something real to offer because they've stopped trying to get something that was never missing in the first place. The path continues, the integration deepens, and every day becomes an opportunity to choose consciousness over compulsion, authentic pleasure over artificial stimulation, your true nature over borrowed desires. You are not here to escape your humanity. You are here to fulfill it. And in that fulfillment, you become a light for others still finding their way home to themselves. The journey we've taken together doesn't end here. It begins here, in your next choice, in your next breath, in your next opportunity to meet yourself with the same compassion and wisdom you would offer a dear friend who's finally ready to come home. If this exploration has shifted something within you, please share it with others who are ready for this conversation. Subscribe to stay connected to this community of conscious seekers. And remember, you already have everything you need to begin. The question is not whether you're ready. The question is, are you willing? Until our paths cross again in this grand adventure of consciousness, may you find the courage to want what your soul actually desires, and may you find the wisdom to recognize that you already are what you've been seeking.